Welcome to the vocabulary lesson for the role of media 2. Let's get started. At the beginning of this article, we see the word propaganda. Propaganda basically means government lies. Government lies. Usually organized lies, right? They plan the lies. So organized lies from the government, we call that propaganda. Sometimes we might talk about propaganda from a company. Then we see the word slogan. A slogan is a phrase that we repeat again and again and again. Usually we use this in advertising, an advertising slogan. In the article, it talks about Woodrow Wilson's slogan, peace without victory. So during the election, he would say, peace without victory, peace without victory, peace without victory. That was his slogan. All right. And then we see the word pacifistic in this. Pacifistic. Pacifistic means peaceful. It also means anti-war, against killing, against violence, and against war. So pacifistic, in this case, the American population was pacifistic. It means they were against war. They didn't want to fight in a war. Okay, we see the phrase committed to war, committed to doing something. If you're committed to do something, it means you are planning to do it. You really want to do it. You maybe promised to do it. So committed to war means really you have decided you will go to war. Okay, we see the word commission here. The government created a commission. A commission is a group, an official group, kind of like a department or a committee. Very similar to committee. So a commission is like a government group or an official group. All right, we see the word hysterical in the second paragraph. Hysterical means very emotional, very, very upset, and very, very emotional. So hysterical. Hysterical means very emotional. And then the next word is warmongering. Warmongering. It's two words together, war and mongering. Warmongering means war-loving. It means you love war. You want to have war. So the American government made the population warmongering. It turned them into a warmongering population, a war-loving population. They wanted to fight. They wanted to kill people. Warmongering. And then in the end of that paragraph, we see tear the Germans limb from limb. A limb is an arm or a leg. So arms are limbs and legs are limbs. So tear, of course, means take off. So this is a common idiom, kind of a slang phrase. Tear somebody limb from limb. I want to tear them limb from limb. It means you want to attack them and hurt them very badly, or attack them and kill them. So the Americans wanted to tear the Germans limb from limb. It means they wanted to attack and kill the Germans. Okay, we see the word achievement here. An achievement is a success, an accomplishment, or a success. An achievement, something that you do well, something you succeeded at. All right, and then we see the phrase to whip up. To whip up. The government whipped up. Hysterical communist scare. A hysterical communist scare. To whip up means to create, right? To make or create. Or it means to increase a lot, usually with emotions. But if you use it for create, to whip up, to create something, you can use it in cooking sometimes. I whipped up some food means I made some food very quickly. But if you whip up emotion, it means you increase somebody's emotion, usually somebody else's emotion. Okay, again, we see hysterical, which means hysterical, very, very emotional and upset, hysterical. And we see the word red. Red, of course, you know the color red, but sometimes red means communist. And here it means communist. Okay, and we see the little two-word phrase, pretty much. It succeeded pretty much in destroying unions. Pretty much means mostly, pretty much. I'm pretty much full after eating, right? It means I'm pretty much full means I'm mostly full. Pretty much. Okay, then we see unions. Here the word union or unions means a workers group, right? A group that fights for workers, tries to help workers. A union or unions, a union or unions. All right, we see the business establishment. There's a phrase, the business establishment. Establishment, the establishment. The establishment means the most powerful group. The most powerful group, maybe the oldest and most powerful group. It has an idea of kind of old and powerful. So the business establishment means the most powerful and old businesses or business people. Actually, it really means business people. All right, we see the word progressive here as an adjective, progressive intellectuals. Progressive, when used in politics, progressive means liberal, kind of left, or liberal. So progressive intellectuals means liberal intellectuals. And we see a circle that took great pride, or this circle took great pride. A circle can mean a group of people. You know the normal meaning, of course. Circles are round, right, shape. But a circle can also mean a group of people. And that's what it means here. It means a group of people, a circle of people, a group of people. And to take great pride, or in the past tense here, took great pride. Took great pride means felt proud, felt very proud. Felt very proud, or to feel very proud. Took great pride, or take great pride, same. All right? To drive somebody to do something. To drive. To drive means to push somebody or force them to do something. So the government drove, past tense, drove Americans into war. It means the government pushed the American people to war. They kind of forced them to fight, or they pushed them and encouraged them very strongly to fight. To drive somebody to do something means you make them do it, or you force them to do it, or you push them to do it. Okay, we see the word reluctant. Reluctant means hesitant. Reluctant. Reluctant means you don't really want to do something. It's an adjective. So a reluctant population means the people really don't want to do something. They really don't want to do it. Reluctant. That's reluctant. Reluctant means you feel you really don't want to do something. All right. And to elicit, or eliciting, means to bring out or cause. Right? If I elicit anger from you, it means I bring out anger from you, right? I cause anger to come out of you. It means I make you angry. So if I elicit anger, it's kind of like I pull anger out of you. That's to elicit. To elicit. And we see the word fanaticism here. Fanaticism means total belief. A very, very, very strong belief in something. A crazy belief in something. Fanaticism. Fanaticism. We talk about religious fanaticism. If you have religious fanaticism, it means you love your religion so much, you think every other religion is bad, you think your religion is totally good, 100%. So we can talk about Christian fanaticism. It means you think Christianity is the only true religion and all other religions are terrible. Or you could have political fanaticism. It means you think your country is the best and all other countries are terrible. It's fanaticism. Fanaticism. All right, we see the word fabrication here. It says there was a lot of fabrication. Fabrication basically means lying. Lying. Fabrication is lying. The action of lying. Fabrication. Fabrication. Fabrication means making something that is false. Making something that is not true. Fabrication. Fabrication. And then we see the word atrocities. 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 Atrocities means terrible, terrible actions. Very, very violent actions. For example, torture and murder and killing people. Everybody. Those are atrocities. Atrocities. Very, very violent, terrible actions. Atrocities. Atrocities. All right. And then we're going to move on to the second page now. And we see the word disseminate here. To disseminate propaganda. To disseminate something means to spread it. To spread it. It means to give it to many, many people. Or to communicate it to many, many people. You can disseminate a disease, for example. You have a cold, and you sneeze, and you give the cold to many, many other people. You are disseminating the virus, right? You're disseminating the disease. If you talk about communication, disseminating propaganda, it means you're spreading the propaganda. You are telling the lies to many, 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 many people. To disseminate. Disseminate is a verb, disseminate. We see the verb concoct. Here in the article it says concocting. They were concocting lies. To concoct or concocting means creating. Making or creating. Concocting means creating or making. Sometimes has an idea of making something that's false, but not always. So concocting. Concocting means creating. And then convert. To convert means to change. To change, to convert. We've had that word before. To convert means to change, usually to change from one thing into something else. Maybe from one idea into another idea, one belief into another belief, one religion into another religion. That's convert. 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 And finally, in the last paragraph, we have the word state. State propaganda. In this case, the word state means government. So government propaganda, state propaganda, government propaganda. And finally, we have the word deviation. 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 Deviation means variation. It means small changes from the norm, what is normal. So deviation means you change, you go away from the normal thing. You get away from some standard or some rule. It's deviation. Deviation means variation from what is normal, or variation from what is accepted, or variation from what is most common. That's deviation. Deviation. Usually has a little bit of a negative idea, but here it does not have a negative idea. It's deviation. That's deviation. All right, that is all of the vocabulary for this article. Move on to the mini story. Welcome to the commentary for the role of media 2. And this section is subtitled Early History of Propaganda. And I think it's interesting that early propaganda, state-sponsored, government-sponsored propaganda in the modern world begins in the United States. You know, we always think about Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, you know, with that kind of propaganda, or North Korea. But in fact, America started this kind of modern propaganda, and I think America is still the master of propaganda. You know, the kind of propaganda you see in China, that you see in North Korea, it's kind of very crude. Crude meaning simple. Everybody knows it's propaganda. It's obvious. And because it's so obvious, it's less powerful. But we see here in this article how in the United States this early propaganda started, and it was very, very effective. And also interesting that it started with a war, in this case World War I. So at that time, the American population did not want to fight a war in Europe. They did not believe that Germany was their enemy, and in fact, Germany was not the enemy of the United States. Germany was the rival of England. But the Woodrow Wilson government wanted to fight in the war. Right? They wanted to join the war. But the problem was the American people did not want to do it. They were basically peaceful. So what did the government do? The government, as well as the business establishment and the media, they're all working together. They created a huge propaganda campaign, lots of lies, and they told all these horrible stories about the Germans in World War I. The Germans were killing Belgian babies and murdering civilians and all these horrible atrocities. And while that was true in World War II, the German Nazi Party certainly committed a lot of atrocities in World War II. But in World War I, it was a totally different German government. They were not a Nazi government. They were no worse or better than the English government. Quite similar, I think. So they were not doing these things. These were lies for the most part. They were lies. But the newspapers were spreading these government lies, these U.S. and British government lies. And the intellectual population of the United States at that time wanted America to join the war, start becoming more of an empire. So they also spread these lies. And in a short time, 6 months, the peaceful American people were changed into warmongers. They wanted to kill. They wanted to attack the Germans. They thought the Germans were totally evil, and they had to be destroyed. Sound familiar? Yes. So, and it worked very, very well. And it worked so well that the government and the media and the business establishment in the United States, they realized, wow, these are powerful techniques. We can use them for other things. And they used them against the unions. At that time, unions were growing more powerful. Workers' groups were fighting to help American workers so that American workers would have better pay and American workers would have better working conditions, and so that children would not be forced to work. And all of these kind of issues the unions were fighting for, and they were getting stronger. And of course, the big business people, the big corporations, the big companies didn't like it. And so they realized we can use the same techniques against the unions that we used against the Germans. And so they started spreading lies in newspapers about unions, how unions were communist, and unions were anti-American, and unions were violent, and unions were criminals. And they succeeded again. Once again, they succeeded, and unions were not totally destroyed, but they were weakened very, very much in the United States. And so workers had less power, fewer rights, and big business got stronger and stronger, which continues to this day as well. And they also started up the big communist scare that was kind of together with the anti-union scare. They put the communists and the unions together and attacked them as terrible, horrible enemies. All the newspapers joined in because, of course, the newspapers are owned by large companies. The newspapers are owned by very rich people, very big corporations, and they have the same interests as the American government. In fact, increasingly they control the American government. I would say right now in America, they do control the government totally. And so they use these same techniques against the communists, against the unions. Any internal threat, any internal enemies they didn't like in America, they used it against them, and it succeeded. They learned a lot from this. Now, of course, as we can see in America today, these techniques are still used very powerfully. In fact, they've gotten more powerful with television. And we saw exactly, it's almost scary to read this article by Chomsky about World War I, because It's exactly the same thing that happened with the Iraq War. We saw the same thing. People really didn't want to attack Iraq. There was no reason to attack Iraq. The American people really were reluctant to do that. And so the Bush government started creating lies, and they worked with Fox News and CNN and all the major media, the New York Times, all these large corporate media companies joined in, and they started spreading lies about Iraq. Iraq was developing nuclear weapons. Iraq was getting uranium to build a nuclear bomb. Iraq had chemical weapons. The Iraq government was murdering people in Iraq. All of this just repeated again and again and again and again, constantly repeated in the media, in the newspapers, on the television. Of course, we know now, well, most of us knew then, that they were lies. And of course, now we know for sure they were lies. But at the time, it worked very well. In a very short time, in a few months, the American people became fanatics again. They wanted to attack Iraq and destroy the Iraqis. We had to kill Saddam Hussein because Saddam Hussein was Hitler, the same as Hitler, a terrible, evil monster. And so again, they whipped up that hysteria, and America went to war. It worked very well again. And we can see now that the Bush government is starting to try to do this yet again with Iran. Again, we're seeing all these stories about the Iranians are working on nuclear weapons. Of course, there's no proof about this. They just have a nuclear program, but nothing about nuclear weapons. But again, they're trying to scare the American people that Iran will get a nuclear bomb, and they're going to bomb America with their nuclear weapons, which of course is a big lie, but they keep repeating it again and again. You're seeing it on all the cable shows, the news shows, more stories about Iran getting a bomb. Every time Iran's president makes some comment about Jewish people or the Holocaust, it's on the news all the time. We see stories about how the Iranians are helping to attack people in Iraq, attack Americans in Iraq. So this propaganda, again, it's starting, and they're, of course, trying to do the same thing. They're trying to whip up a hysteria in America against Iran. Now, I don't know if it may work, it may not work this time, because some people in the top of the government, some intellectuals, some of the powerful business establishment don't want to attack Iran. So you might see a little more division in the newspapers and in the TV because these people with all the power and the money are a little bit divided about what to do about Iran. So that's why it's not quite as powerful yet. But it still might work if they want it to. And finally, you might have laughed a little bit when you hear the mini story. You might recognize the characters Hugo and Georgie. Talking, of course, about Hugo Chavez down in Venezuela. And we have seen this kind of propaganda against Chavez and against Venezuela very strongly in the United States. It's amazing how strong the lies and the propaganda are about Venezuela, and especially Chavez. And so in the newspapers, it's always these terrible things about Chavez. Chavez is a dictator. Chavez is the next Castro. And Bush just keeps repeating the same lies that, he's a dictator, a dictator, a dictator. And of course, he was elected. Venezuela is a democracy. But it doesn't matter. American propaganda works on emotion, not on logic. And that's one of the key powers of American propaganda compared to, say, North Korea or other kinds of propaganda. In America, it works on emotion. Logic doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. What they do is they just create emotion, especially using fear. And patriotism too, of course. So they just create a fear that Chavez is a dictator. Chavez is evil. Chavez is, going to destroy us all, that kind of mentality. And so they just keep telling stories in the New York Times, on TV. It's always, they find something negative about him to paint him, to show him as a terrible dictator. And they never mention the elections. They never mention that he's actually part of a democracy. None of that. And of course, they never talk about anything good that he's doing to help poor people, etc. So we get a very strong propaganda it kind of starts with the president and the government, but then it's repeated by the corporate media, the large companies. So the New York Times, Fox News, CNN, they all repeat this propaganda. And after it's repeated again and again and again and again, so if you ask most Americans, what kind of government does Venezuela have? Oh, it's a dictatorship. It's just like Iraq was, right? It's a horrible dictatorship. That's what it is. And that's what they believe because the propaganda works very well. It's a little depressing, to be honest, being an American sometimes when you realize how this happens and how in a country that is supposed to be free, I guess that's more of the propaganda, that people are controlled so much. But, you know, people are kind of free here. We can choose to do other things. We can disagree with the government. But the problem is that the government and the business establishment and the media are all basically controlled by the same, you know, group of very wealthy people. And the way they control people is not by force so much. They don't really arrest people and shoot them. I mean, it happens a little bit. But mostly they control people with thought control, mind control. They do it with the news and the media. That's how they control the American people. If they want to go to war, then they just show lots and lots of stories about how this evil dictator, Noriega in Panama, or the president of Iran, or Saddam Hussein. There's always a new one. Every time there's a new one. And they just make him into evil, terrible, horrible person. They compare him to Hitler, always compare him to Hitler. And then the American people get really angry and upset, and they go to war. It works every time. Alrighty, well that's our depressing commentary. Hopefully, I don't know, I'll try to find something happier next time. But it's true, you know, don't believe the propaganda that America is, you know, the free, peace-loving nation. Because while most Americans do, in fact, support peace, they also are very easily controlled by the media. Their use of the media and their trust of the media is the problem. And that's why we have the American army in Iraq and possibly attacking Iran and interfering in South America and doing terrible things in Central America and doing terrible things in Africa. That's why. Because the American people are controlled by this kind of propaganda, and therefore they either support this kind of thing or they don't know about it. Okay, well, hopefully that will change in the future. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to move to another country. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this commentary and this article. I do think it's an important topic and a very interesting topic to think about. If you have a chance, go to the forums and write a forum entry. Write a forum small. Welcome to the Point of View mini-stories for Role of Media 2. Okay, same story, same mini-story from the mini-story lessons, but 3 different versions now. The first one will be about the past, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there was a man named Georgie. Georgie was a warmongerer. He wanted to kill, kill, kill. He especially wanted to kill Hugo. He wanted to tear Hugo limb from limb. But Hugo was basically pacifistic. He didn't want a war. He only joked about Georgie and laughed at him. When Hugo joked, however, Georgie became hysterical. He yelled and screamed to his friends. He yelled, "Join me, and let's kill Hugo and his friends. Let's kill them all, and let's kill their families, and let's commit terrible atrocities." But Georgie's friends were reluctant. They said, "Hugo is just joking. We don't need to kill him." This made Georgie more angry. He tried to whip up his friend's anger. So, he concocted terrible lies about Hugo. He said that Hugo loved to kill puppies and babies. He disseminated these lies on TV and on the internet. Finally, he succeeded. He drove his circle of friends to war. They attacked Hugo. But Hugo was ready. He had learned kung fu from Jet Li. He kicked Georgie's ass and broke his nose. Finally, he elicited an apology from Georgie. Georgie said, "I'm sorry, Hugo. I'm just a stupid fanatic." Hugo said, "It's okay, little Georgie. Now, go home." All right, great. With this next one, we're going to start with since 7 years ago, or for 7 years. Okay, here we go. For 7 years, Georgie has been a warmongerer. He has wanted to kill and kill and kill. He has especially wanted to kill Hugo. He has wanted to tear Hugo limb from limb. But Hugo has basically been pacifistic. He hasn't wanted a war. He has only joked about Georgie and laughed at him. However, when Hugo has joked, Georgie has always become hysterical. He has always yelled at his friends and screamed at them and said, "Join me, and let's kill Hugo and his friends. Let's kill them all and kill their families. Let's commit terrible atrocities." But Georgie's friends have always been reluctant. They have always said, "Hugo is just joking. We don't need to kill him." This has always made Georgie more angry. Finally, he decided to whip up his friend's anger. So, he concocted terrible lies about Hugo. He said that Hugo loved to kill puppies and babies. He disseminated these lies on TV and on the internet. Finally, he succeeded. He drove his circle of friends to war. They attacked Hugo, but Hugo was ready. He had learned kung fu from Jet Li. He kicked Georgie's ass and then broke his nose. Finally, he elicited an apology from Georgie. Georgie said, "I'm sorry, Hugo. I'm just a stupid fanatic." And Hugo said, "Well, it's okay, little Georgie. Now, please go home." Okay, you'll notice that for more than half of this version, I used have, had, has, been, right? Because these are repeated actions starting 7 years ago, continuing until now. But finally, I changed to the past tense because it was a specific action, right? Just a one-time action. Georgie decided to whip up his friend's anger. He concocted terrible lies. They went to war. Now I'm using the past tense because these are all single actions that were in the past and are finished. All right. Let's go back again to the top, this time into the future. Next year. There's a guy named Georgie. Georgie is a warmonger. In the future, he will want to kill and kill and kill. And in the future, he especially will want to kill Hugo. He's going to want to tear Hugo limb from limb. But Hugo will basically be pacifistic. He won't want a war. He'll only joke about Georgie and laugh at him. When Hugo jokes, however, Georgie will become hysterical. He'll yell and scream to his friends. He'll yell, "Join me and let's kill Hugo and his friends. Let's kill them all and kill their families. Let's commit terrible atrocities." But Georgie's friends will be reluctant. They'll say, "Look, Hugo is just joking. We don't need to kill him." This'll make Georgie more angry. So, to whip up his friend's anger, he'll concoct terrible lies about Hugo. He'll say that Hugo loves to kill puppies and babies. He'll disseminate these lies on TV and on the internet. Finally, he'll succeed. He'll drive his circle of friends to war. They'll attack Hugo, but Hugo is going to be ready. He'll have learned kung fu from Jet Li. He'll kick Georgie's ass and he'll break his nose. And finally, he'll elicit an apology from Georgie. Georgie's going to say, "Look, I'm so sorry, Hugo. I'm just a stupid fanatic." Hugo will say, "It's okay, little Georgie. Now, go home." As always, in the future, you have to listen for those sounds. He'll, Hugo will. sometimes that ul sound is very difficult to hear. For example, Hugo will say, it's hard to hear that ul sound, right? Which is will in the future. But a native speaker will not usually say, Hugo will say. We'll say, Hugo will say, Hugo will say. The ul is almost silent. There's really more just a pause there that tells us it's the future. So it's okay. Just listen carefully. See if you can hear those ul sounds after the subjects. Just listen carefully. Now, please go back. Listen to each version. After each version, pause. Try to tell that version yourself. Now, do not worry about being perfect. You do not need to be perfect. In fact, don't try to be perfect. Just try to tell the story yourself as best as you can. If it's difficult, try pausing after every sentence and then copy that sentence. Do that with each version. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bạn có thể giải thích thêm ý của bạn không? Chưa hiểu rõ lắm. You're welcome. Let me know if you need anything else.
Okay, one of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management.
That sounds like a solid foundation for success. How do you apply those strengths in your daily work?
I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success. So I always set clear goals and follow through with execution.
That's a great mindset. How do you usually track your progress to ensure you stay on course with your goals?
No, I want you to
Got it. Let me know what
sau này gì ta One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management. I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success. So I always set clear goal and follow through with execution. I use the 12-week planning method to break down my objectives into actionable steps, ensuring that stay focused and productive. Additionally, I'm highly detail-oriented and systematic in my approach to problem solving, whether it's coding, system design, or documentation. I always strive for clarity and precision. 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 This discipline helps me maintain high quality, high quality work while effectively managing managing deadline and priorities. When well, when area I'm working on is over perfectionism. Sometimes I spend too much time refining a solution when a simpler approach may be sufficient. I've been learning to balance quality and with efficiency by prioritizing tasks more effectively. Another challenge is public speaking in English. While I can but communicate well in technical discussions, I'm actively improving my fluency to present ideas more confidently. I, I've been practicing through structured learning and regular speaking exercises. 这是对的谜底。 Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, I want to practice English.
Sure. What do you want to write about?
One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management. Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please try again later.
One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management.
It looks like you want to say that one of your strengths is self discipline and structured work management. A more natural way to phrase it could be one of my key strengths is self discipline and structured work management. Does this capture what you mean?
Yes, one of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management.
That sounds great. You could also say, one of my key strengths is self discipline and effective work management. This makes it sound even more professional and polished. Let me know if you want any adjustments.
No, hãy giả lập. Tôi sẽ luyện nói đoạn này. Hãy lắng nghe và sửa chữa lỗi sai giúp tôi.
Bạn đang muốn viết câu này bằng tiếng Anh đúng không?
No.
Bạn có thể nói, please subscribe to my channel to support me. Nếu bạn muốn luyện phát âm, chú ý nhấn mạnh từ khóa như self-discipline, consistency và actionable steps để câu có nhịp điệu tự nhiên hơn. Thì mà đừng muốn thử đọc sang không?
One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management.
Có một lỗi nhỏ trong câu này. Struggle for punishment không hợp lý trong ngữ cảnh này. Có lẽ bạn muốn nói structured work management hoặc commitment to improvement. Thay vì struggle for punishment, vì punishment mang nghĩa tiêu cực. Câu sửa lại có thể là a key strategy is self-discipline and structured work management. Hoặc a key strategy is self-discipline and commitment to improvement. Bạn có muốn thử đại không?
One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management.
Câu của bạn gần đúng, nhưng structured group management có thể chưa diễn đạt chính xác ý bạn muốn nói. Nếu bạn đang nói về cách làm việc có tổ chức và quản lý công việc hiệu quả, thì structured work management sẽ phù hợp hơn. Câu sửa lại. One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management. Như vậy, Stigram.
One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management.
Tuyệt vời. Jason hoàn toàn đúng về mặt ngữ pháp và tự nhiên. Nếu muốn nói trôi chảy hơn, bạn có thể chú ý nhấn mạnh nhẹ vào self-discipline và structured work management để làm rõ ý. Bạn có muốn tiếp tục với câu tiếp theo không?
I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success. So I always set clear goals and follow through with execution.
Yurt. Câu này đúng ngữ pháp và tự nhiên. Một điểm nhỏ để làm cho câu trôi chảy hơn, bạn có thể nhấn mạnh consistency, clear goals và follow through khi nói để tăng sự tự tin. Bạn kéo thử lại với một chút nín át.
I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success. So I always set clear goals and follow through with execution.
Câu bạn gần đúng, nhưng follow through with accuracy không tự nhiên trong ngữ cảnh này. Thay vào đó, follow through with execution hoặc chỉ follow through sẽ hợp lý hơn. I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success, so I always set clear goals and follow through. I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success, so I always set clear goals and follow through with execution.
I use the 12-week planning method to break down my objectives into actionable steps, ensuring that I stay focused and productive. One of my key strengths is self-discipline and structured work management. I believe that consistency is the key to long-term success. So I always set clear goals and follow through with execution. I use the 12-week planning method to break down my objectives into actionable steps, ensuring that I stay focused and productive. Additionally, I am highly detail-oriented and systematic in my approach to problem solving, whether it's coding, system design, or documentation. I always strive for clarity and precision. This discipline helps me maintain high quality work while effectively managing deadlines and priorities. When weaknesses, when one area I'm working on is over perfectionism, sometimes I spend too much time refining a solution when a simpler approach may be sufficient. I've been learning to balance quality with efficiency by pri- prioritizing tasks more effectively. Another challenge is public speaking in English. While I can communicate well in technical discussions, I'm actively improving my fluency to present ideas more confidently. I've been practicing through structured learning and regular speaking exercises.